Hi, my name is Manan Raval,
Hi, my name is Bartholomew.
and we are from the Passaic Academy for Science and Engineering here in Passaic, New Jersey. We are both seniors.
For Davidson Fellows Scholarship, we are Team Water Contamination Analysis for the Passaic River.
And here we use kit number 19, the qualitative introduction to water pollution. In this kit, we use the pipette, the chem plate, the calibrated tubes, and most importantly, we use the test solutions.
Okay, so what we did was that we took water samples and we used certain amounts of water into either gun plates or the calibrated tubes, and then added the test solution and the test indicator powder to them to notice for any observable pattern. Most specifically, color changes, and the denser the color change, how much the color changes, that represents the amount of contaminants the water sample contains. We tested for pH, chlorine, chromium, nitrate, phosphorus, and sulfides.
Welcome to our PowerPoint presentation about the contamination analysis in the Passaic River. Introduction to the Passaic River. 2 centuries ago, Alexander Hamilton and George Washington were sitting on the Patterson Fall eating lunch. Soon, Alexander Hamilton realized how this river could be used for industrial production. Soon, cotton mills, textile mills, and other factories started to develop along the falls. Over time, these factories soon became demolished, but the pollution still remains today. Here is our analysis of the Passaic River. We chose 2 locations to collect our samples. First, in this map, we have 2 spots that we circled. The first one, which is Totowa Avenue, has less pollution as it is before the industries. Below it, we have the Garfield location, which we are expected to find more pollution because it is after the industries. Okay, process of this experiment. Here, we are taking water from the Garfield/Patterson Fall area. We are expected to find more chemicals in this water sample, as this is near the industry. Here you see me and my partner collecting the water samples from the river. This location is from the Totowa Avenue, where we are expecting to find less chemicals in the water sample. This is because this is far away from the industry, but still connected to the Passaic River. This is me and my partner collecting the water samples there.
So here we are in our school on a table with the lab aids, kit number 19, qualitative introduction to water testing. We used this kit and the water samples that we collected from Passaic River to test for contaminants in the water. So what we had to do was that we used chem plates and calibrated tubes and test solutions and indicators to run tests on each of these samples and observe any color changes. And the darker the color, that means the more the chemical there is in the samples. So we conducted the test on each of the samples. We had collected 2 bottles from each of the samples from each of the places in Passaic River, and then we ran tests. So we measured the test for pH, chlorine, chromium, nitrates, phosphorus, and sulfides. So in these images, you can see me and my partner conducting the tests. So here are the test results from upstream. In the upstream water sample, we had found that the pH was, the color was a greenish color, which meant that the pH was around 8. and then in the template, the area next to it is clear because the test for chlorine was negative. The test for chromium on top in the calibrated tube, the first calibrated tube, was negative. Next to it is nitrates, which was light pink. And what that means is there was nitrates present, but in a very low quantity. And next to the nitrates to the right is phosphorus. And the lighter green color is indicative of phosphorus, but in a small concentration. And to the right of that, the last calibrated tube was sulfites. And we found no sulfites in the Passaic River water upstream. And these are the water sample from downstreams. And in downstream sample, we saw that the pH was higher as the color was darker. We see that there's a blue color in the template. However, the chlorine and chromium tests were negative here as well, and nitrate test was positive, but here we can see a darker pink color, which means that there were more nitrates present. And for phosphorus, there's a great there's the green color is darker in this sample, so that means that there's greater phosphorus presence. And the sulfide sample, even though it looks clear, in the beginning it had turned blue for an instant, which means that small quantity of sulfide was present in the test.
So our results.
So here is a representation of our data in table format. This is the water sample from upstream, and this is the water sample from downstream. Both samples were collected on 2/18/2022. So in conclusion, what our data means is that as water travels from upstream to downstream in the Passaic River as it crosses the Patterson Industries, it becomes more polluted. And our data, we can represent this is because the concentration of nitrates has increased since the color went from light pink to darker pink. For phosphorus, this was the same case. It went from light green to darker green, which means that the phosphorant amount has increased. And for sulfides, we saw no presence or insignificant presence to small presence of sulfides in the downstream sample compared to the upstream sample. And since the amount of phosphates has increased, and since phosphate is a strong base, the pH has increased from pH 8 in upstream sample to pH 10 in downstream sample. So even though the Passaic River has already known to contain the mercury, PCBs, and dioxins according to the Environmental Protection Agency, our experiment shows that there are other minor chemicals, such as nitrates and phosphorus, that are present in the Passaic River, even though they're unnoticed. So these chemicals, when exposed to humans for a long period of time, can cause detrimental health effects and other various disorders.
There is a lack of action to reduce the pollution in the Passaic River. Our results can be used in support of action that should be taken to reduce waste in the Passaic River. Our proposal is that we are going to talk to the county waste management to find out which chemicals from the product do they accept. From this, we will create a public service announcement in which we tell our community to not drink certain products that have these dangerous chemicals. This will eventually reduce the chemicals that are in the Passaic River to make it less polluted. Our second solution is that we found out that there were programs placed to reduce the pollution in the Passaic River, but those programs never started. By using our data, we can support individuals who want this program to start and support them in, in getting funded for the program.
This is the end of our video.
Thank you for taking the time, and we hope that you find this informative.